The Grimsby Public Art Gallery played host to the 41st annual Wayzgoose Book Arts Fair.
Wayzgoose is a gathering of book artists, printers, paper makers, lino block cutters, wood engravers, that sort of thing. 41 years ago, so when the gallery was maybe 4 years old, the director at the time, William Poole, who was a printer in his part-time, a hand printer in his spare time, so he decided that there should be a place where printers could gather and talk and compare notes, and that the public could come and see what they did. And so in the old building, that's where the Wayzgoose started. And at first it was a 2-day event, and then they decided that was too much. So now it's just 1 day.
Through word of mouth, Wayzgoose continues to grow in popularity.
There's some people who still want to see how a book is made and where it comes from. We spend so much time on, other media, but to have a real book in your hand and to really talk to people who make them, that's important.
Larry Thompson, a letterpress printer, has been attending Wayzgoose for over 15 years.
I got into letterpress printing because I wanted to print books by hand, but then I realized immediately that I wanted illustrated books. So I began to cut my own illustrations. Carruthers Press, the press is named after our house in Merrickville, Ontario. I guess I consider myself an artist with a printing press. That's the way I look at it. I'm not doing commercial printing or anything like that. I'm just doing printing for myself. I use it as a sort of a tool of expression.
David Carruthers, a papermaker from Montreal, has been taking part in Wayzgoose for over 30 years.
Well, paper is made from rag, and rag is mostly cotton, but we use sisal and jute. We have to test the rag, but then once it's tested, we go right into chopping it up into smaller pieces and putting it into something called a Hollander beater, which is a large machine developed in about 1690 by a couple of Dutchmen who were, as far as I could tell, just geniuses and were unheralded because we don't know their names. The Hollander beater, though, has pretty much survived unchanged since that time. I'm the only one using a Hollander in Canada. At one time, though, every mill in Canada had a beater, had a Hollander beater.
Spirit Lake, a book 4 years in the making, was created by Alan Stein.
I just thought I would create a book about Georgian Bay. And Spirit Lake itself, the words come from the Ojibwe, Anishinaabe, Manindo Gaming. And that means Spirit Lake, and that's what everybody calls Georgian Bay. It's Georgian Bay. But in this book, I decided to approach a number of authors that I knew or was acquainted with, that I knew had cottages or grew up on Georgian Bay or had an intimate connection. And I approached them, asked them to write something. I then designed the book myself. So I went to David Carruthers in Montreal and asked him to make me 1,000 sheets of handmade paper in a color that I chose, that I thought reflected the landscape on Georgian Bay. Once I had the paper, I also ordered the wood engraving blocks, which is how I illustrate the stories. I then hand set type for every person's story in a very old-fashioned, traditional way, and printed the pages one at a time. When certain phrases or certain sentences in their story inspired me with an idea, for a visual idea for what their image could be to go illustrate their story, I made sketches. Finished printing the book, then I revisited those sketches at the end, made larger charcoal drawings in black and white, and then translated those into the wood engraving blocks.
Most posters in production are done today are just with the head. You're just pumping it out for promotion purposes, and no one cares about the actual material of it. Whereas an artist, when you elevate something to an art level, I think it becomes more a matter of heart. And if you can work with your hands as well, that's just bonus.